Hi, and welcome back to my lesson on the playing of Little Milton. This is the second part of this classic licks lesson. And what I'm doing is taking a look at some of the licks that I've learned from listening to Little Milton's recordings for the Bobbin label out of St. Louis in the late 50s, early 60s. What I consider his best and most creative guitar playing. So if you're into the old blues style, there's some great stuff you can learn here. In the first lesson, we focused on a few examples from his playing in the first position blues box. Now I'm going to show you some stuff in the second position blues box. And he's got some real classic signature licks in this position that I think you can use to spice up your playing right away. We're going to start out in the key of B flat. So I've got my first position bar chord, B flat. And the second position blues box is going to be between the 8th, 9th frets and the 11th frets on the first and second strings. And include sometimes the 10th fret of the 3rd string. But for the most part, we're going just those 4 notes. And we're throwing in some bends and occasionally a couple other notes in there. So let's start out with lick number 10 if we pick up from where we left off in the last lesson. And the 10th lick goes like this. Again. So what I'm doing, I'm going to bend on the 11th fret. It's a 3-fingered bend, first finger on the 9th fret. And then bring it back down to the 11th fret of the first string. Bend. And go 9 to 11. And then I'm going to do a bend. Kind of a 1-finger bend on the 9th fret of the first string. This is what I think he's doing. So it's... That's the first part. And then he's going to the 11th fret of the second string. He's going to hit 1, and then again with the vibrato. So the whole thing. And that's a very simple but a cool lick. A lot of touch involved in that. You can speed it up, slow it down, vary the approach, attack on any of those notes in that lick. So again. So I'm going. And that is lick number 10, the first one that we're doing here in the second blues box. One of Milton's more famous licks, and B.B. King did this too, but this is the first time I've heard anyone do it quite like this. Maybe I'm wrong. Magic Sam used this kind of lick too. And he goes like this, where it's still in the key of B flat. So we're starting right here. Here's our second blues box, and he does something like this. This is lick number 11. And this lick is really cool. Starting on the 11th fret, let's do the whole thing one more time. And so I'm starting on the 11th fret of the second string, and then I'm doing this chromatic run from the 9th, 10th, 11th frets of the first string. That, so the whole thing. And then the last time he does it, he just goes from 9 to 10 and then to the 11th fret of the second string. And then you could also throw in that 9th fret bend again. So the whole thing. Something like that. You could do a lot of variations on that. But that's the idea. So you're just doing this in the second blues box. Instead of just playing the 2 notes, you're throwing in that 3rd one, the 10th fret of the first string. Which is a real typical, cool little Milton lick in the second. Lick number 12, our 3rd in the second position blues box. Let's go to the key of A flat. Another weird key, but yet this is where you hear some of the Little Milton songs, and I think a couple of them from the Bobbin recordings are in A flat. And this lick is a lick that you hear in his playing that's really cool, very easy to play, and more contemporary guitar player. One of my favorites, Anson Funderburg. I've heard him use this quite a bit. In fact, that's where I first learned it. I've heard Magic Sam use it too. It goes like this. We're going to key of A flat, so our second position blues box is between the 7th and the 9th frets. this lick on the first string. And in the second position blues box, we're going to do a 3-fingered bend on the 9th fret. And then we're going to bring it back to the 9th fret. Then we're going to go 7, 9, 7, all on the first string. And then we're going to go to this 9, 7 lick on the 2nd fret. It's just going back and forth between the 9th fret and the 7th fret, back to the 9. And then putting the vibrato on the 9th fret of the 2nd string. And the third time through, he goes back to the 7th fret of the 1st string. And winds up on that, or goes into something else. But that lick, you could mix that up and use that in a lot of different ways. That's a cool second position. For lick number 13, we're going to go back to the key of G. And this is a lick out of the second position blues box, which is between the 6th fret and the 8th frets on the 1st and 2nd strings. And so let me show you the lick. This is a really kind of a frantic, cool lick that you could throw into a solo, use it as a fill. It goes like this. And so what he's doing is he's bending on the 8th fret. That's the 8th fret of the 1st string. I'm doing a 3-fingered bend from the 6th fret to the 8th fret. And then he's bringing it back down to the 8th fret. And then he's doing this 6, 8, 6 lick on the 1st string. Something like that. You could wrap it up with something like that. So the whole thing. Going lots of different directions with that. So I hear him doing that on the in the second position blues box. Bend up. Play it faster. Or you could play it slow. All kinds of variations you can all kinds of directions you can go with that lick. Lick number 14. Let's go right into it. We're going to go back to A flat. And one of the coolest licks that you hear Little Milton do is also one of the easiest ones. And I hear this in a tune where he's getting ready to go into a solo. And you hear that little lead in. Like that. But it's that lead in. And what I hear him doing is using this 7th double stop position. Basic blues type thing, but this is in the second blues box. I've got my first finger on the 7th fret of the 2nd string, and now I'm going to go with my second finger to the 8th fret of the 3rd string. But I'm not going to play that lick. I'm just going to do a little scrape, real quick. Kind of like that, where I'm picking the 3rd string to the 2nd string. And the main note in that little lick is the 9th fret of the 2nd string. Like that. So I'm keeping that position, which you could use to do that lick, but instead I'm just holding it steady. Do a quick scraping pick. And then I'm going to mute it with my right hand palm. So I don't hear this. Don't want that to ring out. I want to get to that 9th fret of the 2nd string. And that's one of my favorite little licks. So he starts out the solo like that and goes into it. I can't remember what song that is in the key of A flat, but that's a neat little way to lead in. Some guys you hear do this. Or B.B. King did that quite a bit. You even hear Little Milton do that here and there. But I like that way of leading into it. The last example that I have for you is number 15 on the tab. And this is a simple lick in the second blues box, but it shows you where you can slide up the neck a little bit. And Little Milton didn't do a whole lot of this stuff, but this is one example. This is in the key of A flat. So my blues box is between the 7th and the 9th frets, and he does something like this. So instead of just bending, he's going to take a slide from the 9th fret to the 11th fret. So I start out on the 9th fret of the 2nd string to the 7th fret of the 1st string. Then I'm going to slide from the 9th to the 11th on the 1st string, and then come back 9, 7 on the 1st string. So the whole thing. You could combine other licks or go into the rest of the solo. So one more time. And that's something you can do out of that 2nd position blues box. You could also go to the 10th fret. This is kind of a Otis Rush type thing. So you don't just have to stay in that 2nd position blues box. I don't hear Little Milton do that too often, but there's one tune where he does do a little lick like that. Okay, so that is all the Little Milton stuff, and basically his style, if you listen to the Bobbin recordings, if we take the key of B flat, is he'll play a lot of his stuff in the 1st position blues box, but then he'll also go to the 2nd position blues box and switch back and forth between the two. And that's the idea, is that you learn what you can play in both and then mix them together. But a lot of his stuff, from what I've listened to, a lot less so than the early B.B. King stuff, is he tends to stay in one or the other. And if he does switch back and forth, it's just a one-time deal to wrap up the solo or wrap up the phrase. But most of his playing, so for instance, if he's playing in the 1st position blues box, he tends to stay there. And only every now and then do I hear him do something like this. Like B.B. King would do, going back and forth between the blues boxes. So listening to the Little Milton stuff, you can learn a lot of cool licks in the 1st position blues box and a lot of cool stuff in the 2nd position blues box. As far as chords go, he doesn't play a whole lot of chords from what I hear. His real early stuff for Sun Records, he plays some pretty primitive 9th chords, major chords, some 6th chords, not a whole lot. And in that sense, he's also a lot like B.B. King. B.B. King played chords, but just not very often. And there's a couple tunes where you hear him like maybe playing those vamping chords along with his singing, but for the most part, he's playing fills and his solos. And that's about it. So that's why in these lessons I just showed you the 1st position blues box, 2nd position blues box, and tried to show you some examples of what he plays in those. Hope you like these lessons. Little Milton's Bobbin recordings. You can find a lot of them on YouTube, Amazon. If you want to buy the CDs, the digital recordings, that's what I suggest. Listen to those and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll be back again next month with another Classic Licks video, and I think next time we're going to take a look at the playing of Pat Hare, who is one of my all-time favorites, one of the pioneers of the heavy metal power chord sound, and also a great blues guitar player. See you again soon.